All right, everybody, welcome back to Culz Interviews. Today we're going to be talking the paranormal, some history as well, amongst other things. We'll see where it goes, but I'm pretty excited to be talking to our guest, Steve, here today. Steve, for anyone that perhaps hasn't seen you or read your books or listened to any podcasts with you on it, do you want to tell them a little bit about you and then we'll go from there?
Sure. I'll probably let me just throw the plugs out. If you want to know more about me, you can type my name in, all lowercase and together, Steve Asher. That's ASHER .studio.com. That will take you to my books. That'll take you to speaking engagements, bookings. My podcast, House of Asher. Plug. Um, that's kind of that. But I've been doing this for many years, and there's different I I kind of compartmentalize different things because I started out doing this strictly as a scared kid because I had encountered different stuff and um, paranormal stuff. We live close, a wooded area in Western Kentucky, so you're always hearing stuff. You're always hearing stories about Bigfoot coming up, especially through the '70s. I'm 54 now, so heard a lot of that. It really freaked me out. I love the woods, but it scared me, so I started researching cryptids. I started researching, different animal behaviors and habits and prints and scat and all that stuff. Um, and you learn the history. So by nature, you research something. You're going to learn weird history. You're going to learn locations. You're going to learn almost like migration habits. And that's something I don't really hear a lot of people talk about is that pretty much everything, humans included, migrate. And I wonder if some of the sightings, like, oh, okay, maybe early spring you see them towards Seattle or something, but then you catch them more maybe summertime down south. I'm almost for sure there's some migration on some level. So, but yeah, that's kind of what's got me into it, and that and working in corrections and law enforcement, ran into a lot of weird stuff, and you run into a lot of weird stuff, a lot of weird reports about people seeing white haired type of Bigfoot or simian primate type activity and stuff, especially toward eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky is a place that is quite exciting. I've My dad lived in Lawrenceburg. I went to Louisville, so I'm quite aware of some of the lore. There's a bunch of stuff. It's kind of like New Mexico, just one of those hot spots where there's a little bit of everything. And with your history too, working in the actual prison itself, I mean, you had to have encountered a lot of stuff that wasn't paranormal, but still scary as well. That affected you that way.
Right on. Well, you got to understand there's a sort of bravado that goes along with, and some of it's got to be kind of a strong personality to do corrections, to do law enforcement, to do any sort of emergency firefighter stuff. You're going to deal with dead people. You're going to deal with a lot of blood. I don't want to get too descriptive on your podcast, but there's a lot of icky, gooey stuff and a lot of bad boy behavior you run into. And, a lot of times you would have people, they would come through the gates. Where I worked was a Supermax. It was Kentucky State Penitentiary and one of a couple different places I'd worked in corrections. And there's a series of gates. Everything is controlled movement. Okay. There's gates throughout, in and out of cell houses, in and out yards, and out whatever, within about a 20 to 25-foot section. And part of the reason is it's a lot harder to get a massive surge of men in a 20-foot area than say it is 100 yards. You can really build up some speed, battering ram speed. But we had a lot of people, the gates would click behind them when they come in, and you could just see their eyes go like that, and they're like, no. And they turn around and say, I'm going, oh, I forgot something in the car. And that because they're ashamed that they can't go in the yard, and they'll leave. And then you have a lot of the guys, young, like, okay, you have mid-time guys, you have old timers, which were guards. I consider myself a guard. And then you have these COs, and the COs are making fun of these guys. Well, what a punk. And I'm like, hey, man, they're the smart ones. We're the morons going on the hills with these. There's like, what, 100 of us, maybe? At any given time, there's 900 to 1,000 of these people. They can take it whenever they want. They're the smart ones. We're the idiots. you know. So I always tell people, I don't care what your gut tells you. Your gut tells you to back up, back up. Rely on my gut a lot. And it's went over into dealing with people in business. It's dealt with dealing with paranormal situations, ghostly situations, because you can, if it don't feel right, I don't go in. It's just a fact. I've learned that a long time ago. And anytime I don't trust my gut, more often than not, I get the whammy. Whammy. Just like in that comedy. I told you I'd make references. Whammy, bam, there it is. I said I should have listened to it. And that's something you fine tune, just like a person like yourself. We talked about fossils. You get a feeling for you where you know something's going to be. You know the type of strata it's going to be in. You know your environment. And it's the same thing with paranormal research or working in law enforcement.
Yeah, no, when I was doing some research and I saw you worked in the penitentiary, it brought back some memories because my great grandfather worked in the Colorado Territorial Prison out here in Canyon City. And there's a book, Slaughter in Cell House 3, which he's a part of because he was one of the prison guards during the big riot. And so I thought that was really interesting to touch upon that, and just, teach the audience about, the life in it, because it's hard for you guys too, it's not easy on you guys at all.
Well, I'll tell you this. My father, Lewis Asher, who's now deceased, he started his career in law enforcement as a prison guard back in the 50s. He did about 5 years there, went to where I had lived. I don't live in Princeton now, but he went there as a beat cop, worked his way up to chief of police. And he used to tell me the story about his father, Edward Marshall Asher. And he said, my dad didn't want me to be a cop. And I said, okay. And he said, well, it was making it hard for him to find jobs. So, thought people like cops. He says, those aren't the jobs he wanted, son. He said, your grandfather was a counterfeiter and a moonshiner. And he said, oh, yeah. So before my dad became a cop, he was working with my ex-con dad or granddaddy, working for Morgan Funeral Home as a gravedigger. So it's interesting. There's 2 generations of gravediggers before me. There's a convict, and there's law enforcement. So you mix all that together, eventually you're going to get a writer. It's just going to have to happen, or a serial killer or something. So far, I picked up the pen and not the axe. But all joking aside, it was really interesting because, like you said, it's different. And like I said, I told the guys I worked with in the pen straight up because me and she's my ex now, but we're co-parents, and we've done special needs adoptions. We've advocated on the state and the national level. And I'm not tooting my horn. I'm just letting you know a little bit about my background. But so these guys would read newspaper stories about me and my family. And I'm like, okay. Like, hey, I seen your family in the paper. You're walking across the yard, you just sort of stop. Yeah. No, man. That's great. God bless you. You're doing good work. And because a lot of the guys there, unfortunately, were, and that's not everybody, but a lot of times, they're kind of rough cut kind of guys. And they're not used to somebody that is doing something, I don't want to say altruistic, but just other than they had this concept, they're just drinking beer and beating their wives on the weekend. And I told them that story about my grandfather. I said, dude, what did they say on Animal House? He's a legacy. So there it is. I was a penthouse legacy, not a penthouse legacy. That would be another story. Penthouse as of the prison. And so, yeah, I said, hey, man, I'm here for the insurance and to make sure my kids have shoes on their feet. Don't front me out. Don't try to hurt me. Don't try to kill your cellie. Man, we got it made, y'all. And I never had a hand put on me. So you get what what's old saying, you get back what you put out.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. And for the most part, those guys were very respectful. And the ones that didn't, the granddaddies, see, we used to have granddaddies on the block. Okay. Kind of shot callers. You ever heard that, like a rap song talking about a shot caller?
Yeah.
These are the granddads. These are the ones that keep the cell houses chill. You want to act silly, go out and play dominoes, be loud out there. When you're in the house, calm down. And a lot of these guys, if I ever had a problem, they quickly knew it. and they squashed it. So I never had any problem there. But a lot of the stories I got, and if I can say, Hauntings at the Kentucky State Penitentiary, which was my first book, um, touched on a lot of that. And there was a situation where you want to get in a situation where you're going to talk to people, and they knew I did research, and we talked about it. And the thing is, and this is not a superiority thing. One of the things that I try to differentiate myself from, kind of the, oh my God, did you hear that? Jump scared, come at me, bro, rolling up your sleeves, doing push-ups for you to do a scene on a show. I'm not a ghost hunter, man. I don't have no, or, pardon me, my Western Kentucky. I don't have any ghost heads on my wall. Okay. I don't hunt anything. Uh, girls back when I was a teenager was about it. But other than that, man, I treat whatever that energy is as if it was a person. Because if I wouldn't want somebody playing with my grandmom, or, my brother's passed away or something. Don't do that. And I've always got really good responses. And being in a Bible Belt area, I'm very Midwest and Western Kentucky. I always said, look, the person believes they've encountered this and that, or they feel it might be a ghost, or maybe they think it's something demonic. I don't play with anything demonic. Those things are ancient. I walk away. I'm not a demonologist. I've studied a lot, and usually would say the Lord's Prayer and things like that before we went in. But that's above my pay grade, guys. But and that's how I kept it. This is what they believe, or if it's something that's continuing in the same pattern, of course, that seems more like a classic, residual looping haunt. If it's something that seems to kind of answer or change, which that's one of the things I was lucky enough to do. And I'm sorry if I'm being long-winded. I'd had the Hauntings of the Kentucky State Penitentiary, and then I did a Hauntings of the Kentucky State Penitentiary 2, Habitual Hauntings at the Castle, where I went back and talked to some of the people I interviewed the first time. And what's amazing is some of it's changed. And it seems like as there were connections and people have read my book, which is really, well, first of all, it's amazing and I thank them. But I had guards or COs read the book, and they would contact me and go, my husband it's weird. I'd gotten your book, a couple of weeks back after he got hired in, and he's telling me about it. This is exactly what's happening to him. And what should I tell him to do? How does he approach it? Does he not approach it? Does he, carry on a narrative with this thing and explain to him he's not here, he's just doing his job, which is usually what I would always do. And then I would have people who had family housed there. I've had folks go, hey, my son is up on 3rd floor in 5 cell house. I'm reading about this, and he just wrote me a letter. Like, he doesn't know I'm reading this book because we hadn't talked on the phone. He's telling me about something that's happening or something that he's hearing. And I would go, well, look, Tom, I was there and investigating it when I was working. I don't think he's even malevolent. Is he, what faith is he? Does he got any faith? So say the Lord's Prayer and just say, hey, don't bother me. I won't bother you. And then and it's weird. I would have these correspondence with these people. It took on a life of its own. It's strange when you do something like that, just like your podcast, you put it out there and then it's the world's, and you never know how they're going to take it. But it really shocked me because, again, I grew up in a small southern town. It's like probably less than 7,000 people. And I was just a goofy little portly Pugsley Adams looking kid who was scared to death of ghosts. And the things I encountered, I went to the library, to the 132 esoteric section, started reading about ghosts. Encyclopedia, I think it was Hans Holzer's Encyclopedia of Ghosts or something. Reading all this, getting anything I could. Montague Summers talking about different paranormal things, werewolves, vampires, and all this other stuff. Just feeding my mind, being kind of armed with knowledge, it doesn't sound too grandiose. And it kind of helped make it less shadowy and more like, oh, okay, this is what it is. And they come to expect it. Okay, well, what are you getting, Stevie? Because they called me Stevie as a kid. And I'd go, I need this book on Encyclopedia of Witchcraft and Demonology. this and that. And is there any way you can scan me the full rite of Catholic exorcism with the Stations of the Cross and the replies? I was 10. I was 10 years old asking for this. So I was just that's that Asher boy. I didn't cause any trouble, but I was a quirk.
It's funny because you talk about that, and I can relive some of my childhood, or because like we grew up not early on, but whatever the years, like late 1999 through 2005, we lived in a house that had its incidents, and pretty much anyone that would go in there had experienced something. Like it was weird. And so once we moved out, I started to want to learn more about it. And that's when I guess it kind of became less of a taboo. So you could talk about it a little bit more. Not that it's not still, but back then, like people would just like shut you down, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I remember trying to find out information wherever I could, watching things. So it's very interesting how it works that way.
I'll tell you, man, again, from, I again want to thank you guys publicly for having me on. I really appreciate it. For myself, I think it's so funny. I know there are people that definitely have trained themselves, be it someone who can walk into a room and kind of sense changes in pressure. I'm one of those people. It's like, think about, you just walked into the house. Energy's weird. Maybe your mom and dad just had an argument, or maybe like, man, you just missed it. You and your brother were throwing each other around the kitchen, and they were just acting a fool. Dad had to get in there and get onto him. So it was like, I could feel the house feels different. Be it pheromones, be it whatever. We are a lot more in tune than we allow ourselves. But when you have people who do this kind of work, you are going to pick up on things. That doesn't mean everywhere you go is going to be haunted. But again, like a hunter or someone that seeks out things, fossils, whatever, you're gonna there's tells. You're gonna go, I think that's something. I bet you that's got a geode in it, or I bet you whatever. Or these branches are snapped down low. There's signs that something bedded down here, but there's some deer. Or you see something popping up here, limbs busted. Might be a Bigfoot in here. We got to be really careful. So I think by nature we got that, but we've been taught, like, since we were small. I think there's something under my bed. I think there's something in my closet. All that silly and this and that. I don't know. I never did that with my kids. I went, well, what are you dealing with? Okay. Well, first of all, most my kids had been raised Christian, and so I'm like, okay, well, look, you say your prayers at night, right? Okay. Here's your little whatever. I used to sleep with I'm telling you, this is like Salem's Lot time when I was a kid. I saw The Exorcist when I was 5. Jacked me up. But one of my favorite films now. But I would sleep with a little New Testament. And you remember like the little tongue depressor thing that Ben Mears had? I literally had one of those. I kept one as a prop forever. I got one at my house right now. But I was like, look, whatever you need to kind of put between you and whatever, it's okay. But this can't hurt you. And then I was like, if you want to get a little bit older, I'll teach you a little bit about this and that, whatever. Here's a Lord's Prayer if you feel uncomfortable. And if it's bad enough, call me. I'll come in there swinging. But don't be afraid of things. And sometimes there's just energy out there that's, it's not any more threatening than starlight from a dead star 1,000 years ago, where it's just getting to us. It's just remnant, so but yeah, it does seem like that you do run into that, different locations like that. In certain places, I believe in ley lines. I believe in love. No, I believe in a lot of stuff, man. And that doesn't mean belief in having the information. Those two different things. I'll walk a weird line between the scientific method. I don't see me slowly turning into Merlin and wearing the hat with the stars on it or nothing. But the older I get, the more I'm starting to believe in there are magical things. There are mysteries to the universe. Not everything can be explained and categorized. And I'm not saying correlation and causation are the same thing. I'm just saying that sometimes you have to take the rational modern brain out of it and look at shamanism, look at all this kind of stuff. Science has only been around for however long. And I'm not saying, if someone's got a fever, bring in the leeches. That's an old SNL reference right there. Gay medieval witch doctor or whatever. But I'm like, look, sometimes you've got to stop freaking thinking so much and be in the moment and let your body tell you what's happening. Let your mind, let your spirit, whatever. I know I sound hippy dippy and I apologize, but just the older I get, you were talking about it's a little bit more in vogue now. But I remember I had started my team, the Caldwell County Paranormals, and that was a local little ghost hunting team. We had the black shirts, we had our little, chaps, orange looking or white looking, cross or tombstone with the letters across. We were pretty, we were cute. But, and that's how you cut your teeth. That's how you cut your teeth. And as I got older, I put away a lot of that. And it's like, okay, that was a good learning curve, but you also have to understand it's entertainment. I'd actually been on Jason Hall's show before and told him, I said, dude, I owe you a check. I said, because we aped you a lot when we first started. But you gave us kind of a rough idea what we needed to do. But we went out and got our own development. I know we were talking about tech offline, and believe it or not, because, like everybody, oh, we got to get a REM pod, we got to get a FLIR, we got to get a this, we got to get this. It makes julienne fries. And I've actually pulled back to the point, temp gauge, maybe electromagnetic meter, something to record audio or video. And you're going to laugh at me. Divining rods, ghost rods, witching rods, whatever you want to call them. Man, and I tell you, I don't know why, but it's my jams. And you know what? I've yet to have a set of divining rods that the batteries got sucked out of them. Those things work. Rain and shine. You can be walking underwater and those things will work, I assume. But it's, because I've had people go, well, what about Ouija boards or whatever? I was like, I mean, you could set and put a planchette on a chutes and ladders. It's not the board, it's the intent. It's your energy, and you're calling things that you're asking to talk on a voice recorder. You're doing the same thing, but it's not got as a arcane lean to it. But anytime you pray to God or pray to Allah or pray to, I don't know, Paul Lynde from Hollywood Squares, you're going to get a response from something, maybe. And so you just have to have discernment to see if it's positive or negative. I don't want to say it's godly or demonic. I believe a little bit more in the dualistic nature of man, just because I've seen it. I've seen good and evil in people. I've seen good and evil in me, not maybe not evil, but not the best face. But then you also have a high-minded element that you try to do the best you can. So, and I think if we're honest, we're all probably like that. But for me, it comes down to just like when you're dealing with an energy. If it was human, it's going to have the same conflicts. It's going to have the same capacity for good or for, malevolence. And the further I get down it, the more I strip it down, the more it's raw. And I don't know. I wonder where I'll be in 5 or 10 years with this. Who knows?
Right. It's something about always learning. I actually was on our buddy David. He's going to Gettysburg, and he's like, should I get a Ovilus? And I was like, no, just get a EVP recorder and your camera and you'll be fine. But you were talking about electricity and energies and stuff like that. And I wanted Sam to tell you a story about his cousin's house, because that was quite interesting, and he can tell that one pretty well.
Lay it on me.
Basically, the premise of it is, well, to bring you up to speed, is there was a house my cousin ended up renting that his brother lived at beforehand, and his brother was home alone at one point. And out of one of his friend's room, which comes into play later when we go and investigate. But out of his room, he sees this shadow come out, and he was just like, "Oh, my friend just came out of his room and went downstairs." But then that roommate came home through the front door, and he was just like, "Wait, didn't you just go downstairs?" And he was just like, didn't know how to take that. But then come later on, my cousin ended up taking that place from him because they moved out and he needed a place to stay. Because he was at a apartment that had some juggalos messing around with an Ouija board and opened a portal, I believe. Keegan and I were talking about. But he had some crazy stuff happening there, so we ended up getting this place, and he was having some weird experiences.
I'm sorry, I'm seeing these guys with Fago bottles all over the place. Yeah, son, we're gonna call up some demonic shiznit. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny to think about. But so he was just we did paranormal, and he contacted me and was telling me that like he would hear weird stuff, and like he would always hear like 3 knocks like near his bedroom, and like he would hear or like see stuff moving around. And so we went to go and investigate it, and we were getting set up. We had a couple buddies with us, and one of our buddies walked into that roommate's room, and he called Keegan over and was just like, "Hey, come check this out." And like we all kind of went into that room, and like the minute you like walked into it, it just like felt like you were walking into like a wall of electricity. Like all of our hairs would stand up, and like things weren't functioning properly. And so we decided to set up like a EVP there. And so Keegan and one of our other group members' brother,
Adam.
I was going to say Alan, yeah. But Adam was in that room with him. I was in the living room with my cousin, and I think our buddy Cookies was in the kind of small laundry room in between that room and the hallway to the master bedroom. And so we were in there, and Adam was just like asking a bunch of these questions, and he was just like, we're here to talk to you. Do you not want to talk to us? And like while this was going on, like I was just sitting there with like my hands like this, just holding them just right here. And like I just watched my cousin like head dip down and then just go like, and then like just was just like, but I am here. I thought we were friends. I was just like, oh. And so then he called us all out into the living room, and he was just like, stop recording. Everybody stop recording. And like I was still having my hands like this, just like, well, this is interesting. And then he was just like, grab my hands, and he was just like, stop recording. And I was just like, I have nothing. Like I was just holding my hands like this, not recording, not anything. And we left the EVP going in that one room. And then like we kind of just like sat there for a little bit, like not really talking, not really much of anything happening. And then we were finally able to go, and we went to grab that EVP. And as we were going out to the car, Keegan was checking it, and like everything on it was wiped.
Well, like Keegan, that's a killer name. Cookies, man, I wish I had a nickname Cookies. That's awesome. But it's like you got a fun group. But yeah, I have a theory. I'm not sure if I discussed this in our earlier correspondence before the interview, but I have a theory about electricity. I think we live. There was, I think, a book called the Electric Universe or something like that. And my belief, yes, we're flesh. Yes, we're supposedly spirit and whatever. But 8 zillion% we are electricity. Everything has electrons and neurons, and all this stuff is firing, and it's not doing it on sugar plums and hugs. It's an electrical impulse. Everything has electromagnetic energy. If you look at a lot of Native Americans and a lot of shamanistic cultures, they believe in animism. Everything is animated. Everything has an energy, a spirit. And if you measure certain stones, if you measure running water, it has an electrical component, especially if it's running through quartz or something that holds energy and it can release energy over time. I believe that's the reason we catch stuff on electromagnetic recordings. That's why we catch stuff on whatever, because I think it's electromagnetic radiation. And I think that's what we are. Just like a star shoots it out into the universe, I think our energy goes on indefinitely in some form or another. And it might be just the next door, like the next very slight variation of frequency. Maybe we go into the next room, and then we learn there. Then we go to the next room, and maybe that's where the concept of heaven and an afterlife comes from. Supposedly, they had found the gene. They call it the God gene that makes a person be religious. Are you familiar with the God helmet?
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
OMG, girl, let me tell you, this is a situation. There's well, it's a helmet. I mean, you ever seen anybody get like the little where they have the little head sensors and they put them on their head? And well, it's like almost like a shower cap, and they put it on your head, and then they put this slightly. It used to be like almost like a football helmet that kept it close to your head, but they've updated it since then. And then you have like something that sensory deprivates you. You know, where you have something. I don't know if it's exactly a word, but it is now. And they block your hearing, they block your vision. You're in a sensory, almost like a sensory tank type room. And so when you speak, it doesn't reflect back to you. So you're completely cut off from everything. And they would stimulate that part of the brain, and a lot of people would have God or some sort of other experiences. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're dark. But how did they stimulate it? Electricity. Um, I can tell, and I don't know why, and I'm not claiming a gift. I think we all have it. I can tell when stuff's unshielded a lot of times because I go into old houses and go, man, this upper hallway's wonky. And I said, what's behind this paneling? Oh, well, that's where the old wiring is. No, okay. I'm not saying it like how cool am I, but I'm just saying it will affect you. Tidal energies will affect you. Sun spots and flares will affect you. I mean, I think we feel we're so cool and sort of insulated from all that mess that we forgot who we really are. I will do this. I've been in situations at ghostly locations. I mean, again, maybe I am a shaman. God only knows. I'll take my shoes off. First of all, I'm from Kentucky. I hate them, but and I'll walk around on the grounds a little bit and let myself get grounded with it. Not like shocked, but transferring energy, receiving energy, biofeedback, all that stuff. And I reset myself to the location. Might look weird, but again, that's just how I am. I'm everything weird like that. But and I always get uh, almost always positive results. I mean, we can talk about some of the dark stuff and some of the weird encounters I've had in a minute, but again, you bring out what you put in. And if everyone's mind is right and everyone's on the same playing field I try not to have a lot of folks that, and I respect them. I've had other guys that had their own teams that were very much on it's a demon tip, or it's a this and that, or good ghosts run. Yeah, deep cut. But I'm like, I walk in there blank slate and just say, you know, I'm like, did you die here? Who hurt you? Did you hate broccoli? I'm like, look, if you have something to say, we're happy to hear it. Tell us your story. Okay. Share what you want to share. Maybe it says, well, don't want you here. Peace out. And I'm gone. I don't play with that. But all of that does for me just go across the electromagnetic grid that's throughout the universe, all around the planet, ley lines. There's a reason people build on these spots. And they found it. It's almost like a perfect grid around the universe, or not the universe. Sorry, the planet, maybe around the universe, but you know, like Tepe and all these different places, they are all interlinked. And if you really want to get into it, there's a writer whose name escapes me, and I apologize. It talks about, the pyramids were never burial spots; they were energy generators. And they talk about where water would be pushed up into it, and there was these different type of metal uh, moorings or mories or whatever, and the water would swish across it, and it would build a current, electromagnetic current, and then that was be used to whatever. So the fact that I think that we feel that we're the coolest thing since sliced bread is a little, well, a little silly. The only thing I know is I know nothing, and it's humility is. I'm telling you, if you walk in there and go, "Give me what you want to give me," I don't demand anything. Um, Same thing with other teams. Your method may not be my method, and my methods that's always changing. I'm the same guy I was when I was 25, running around, with my little CCP hat and all that stuff. Um, if if you're truly researching, it will morph and change. I think, unless you just come out of the box super cool and got all the answers. I've not met anybody that has, but um, it's really cool, and I love working with teams. Like you said, you got some teams that are they're tech files, man. Hey, I've got this, and this gives instant feedback on EVPs and this and that, and it's got a translator. So if you're in like old Germantown and going, get out of my house, it's going to be great, and you can like in real time. That's neato. That is super cool. Um, and all that, know a lot of people that are very good with dialects. I know people that just by nature are very good with like anagrams and things like that. Maybe they'll get certain things and they can kind of piece it together and go, okay, you can make this list of letters into these words, see if it responds to what you're asking. But then you got just old school guys like me that pick up the dirt and smell it and go, yeah, it's going to rain soon. That's the sort of people I'm from. A lot of Appalachian blood in me, lot of Irish, Scottish in me, um, and we're very connected to the land. A lot of people in rural areas are that way. Uh, I fought real hard. I pushed real hard against that when I was a young man. Um, it's working in radio and stuff. I tried to get rid of my accent, which is hard. And when I'm home, or to come out like this, and I'll start talking like, who's that one guy from King of the Hill? Oh, man, look at that tire, boy. That thing I want to do with it. Now, I'm not that bad, but a lot of people here are. And but I've learned, hey, man, be who you are. Quit trying to be this guy. And I feel like I'm giving life lessons, and I'm not trying to be that guy, but just I'm at the game now that I always heard if you don't grow up by the time you're 50, you don't have to. I'm 54 and I win. So I get to be as silly and childish as I want to until I have to be Mr. Grown Up. But that's a cool thing about the paranormal for me. At the root of it, like, okay, I'll say this. I was a musician for years, played a lot of metal, played a lot of punk. And it was funny because you'd see these kids. It's like, we're individuals. And we all looked exactly the same. Some of the emo kids looked exactly the same. What happened to individuality? What happened to the expression of self? And I found that in the paranormal too. It's sort of like the lunchroom in middle school, man. There's cool tables and there's not cool tables. But I find stuff like, well, like if I can say another net radio show, is that okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like Coast to Coast, they've been very good to me. But some of what they do is it's a bit formulated, and like this thing, us riffing back and forth, wouldn't happen. A lot of times you have to have some. I'll let you in a little secret. Okay, give us 15 or 20 points you want to hit. Okay, here's a few things you want to ask you, so be ready to answer some of these questions. So it's a little scripted. You get some wiggle room, but just like now, we can just talk about whatever and how. Like, did you have a thing other than some spooky stuff that happened to you in movies that crossed over? Like, you talk about a lot of tech stuff. So are you guys like big sci-fi guys? Star Trek, Star
Mhm.
Wars, whatever?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we go to Roswell yearly, so
Okay. And for me, well, obviously you guys remember X Files.
Mhm.
Yep.
Do you remember the granddaddy of X Files? Kolchak the Night Stalker. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
it's
not
not.
familiar.
Oh God, get hip to it. No, that's not that. Not that one they tried to do in 2000s with Pete Townsend. Don't do that
Yeah.
one.
Sam, they got boutique Blu-rays we can get for you. So
Okay.
Yes, Gavin Gavin McGavin, the guy that was in Christmas Story and has a major award. That guy, he was so freaking good in that. And what I loved about him, I really wanted to be the cool guy and Mister Ha 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 and the perfect ten. He was scared. He didn't want to mess with that, and it was thrust upon him. And then he learned it, and at the end, he come out on top generally, or at least he survived. I could relate to that. That's like if I was believing in the old gods, I would be closer to believing in probably the Nordic ones. They were human. They were had their flaws. They had their vanities. They had their whatever. The guys that just float through the air and they're super cool. I can relate to that. So for me, it may be just an anti-hero love, that I have in my heart for like Stephen King stories and stuff. I love an accidental hero, and I love the person that's like, I don't want any part of this, but I got to know what's happening. I have to get to the root of it. And their own tenacity and curiosity, maybe even a touch of OCD, drives them on. And to me, there's something majestic in that. And I can transfer over to any facet of your life. But yeah, for me, I still find wonder in the paranormal. I know it sounds a little goofy, but I think when you box it in to, well, it has to be this. This is cool. That's not that. That's kind of old hat, or nah, that's a little too, as I call, hippy dippy. Um, Nothing's off the table for me. You know what I'm saying? If you can sit and spin an egg in a circle and it spins left or right, or it responds in a story, hey man, whatever your method is, do it. You know, um, why is it any more valid than me with a checklist or me with a this and that? God knows we're this type of investigator because I think we're always going to have interactions with spirits. I assume in 100 years, gosh knows what we're going to have. Are we going to have by then? We might be cybernetic, and have we can go. Okay, I want to put some of those FLIR sensors in my eyes. How killer would that be? So, I try not to write anything off.
yeah, I think that's how we are. We always try to at least have an open mind with everything and go into it and see how it is. We've worked with quite a few people. Our group now is smaller; it's like 6 people, and we've had influx of people in and out. And sometimes they just don't mesh with us, and that's fine. They go off and do their own stuff, and that's just how it works in the field. Because I mean, it's still not accepted, so there's no method that's true, right? So we just got to go out and do what we can. And there is a lot of people that want to just go into a place though and just immediately say it's a demon. Like we've even been told places were like demonic, and I've had the best sleep I've ever had in those places. So
They were great hosts. That's what I'm trying
yeah,
to say. It's um, like by nature, and it depends. You got to understand. I'm assuming these are people that are going on a Judeo-Christian concept of what a demon is, right? If you go back to like jinns and things like that, generally they weren't necessarily good nor bad. Sometimes it depends on how you brought it to them. If you disrespected them, think about even things like house sprites or stuff like that. You put a little cream out for them or whatever, and there are places that still do this to this day. People still believe in trolls in Scandinavia. I'm not saying they're not there. I'm not going to go up there and pee off a troll. Hey, man, if it means I put like I don't know, some grains out on my porch before I go to bed tonight, best believe I will when in Rome, right? But um, when I initially started the team, it got up, man, we got 10, 12, I think up to 15 people. Man, it was like herding cats. And the thing is, let's say you go into a 5-bedroom home, all one level. You're trying to do investigations. You're going to have bleed over, and you're going to have, okay, you might be picking up electromagnetic fields from the equipment in the other room. So it was really hard, and that's when I made the decision saying, look, we can, it's almost like, did any of you guys read comic books?
Yeah,
My
we actually
people.
have a comic book podcast.
Okay, I should have me on there, man. We can talk all day on that.
All right.
But do you remember how, like, they had the gold and the yellow team with the X-Men,
Mhm.
and they did it? That's how I said, look, hey, you guys want to investigate this and that? Go ahead, and we'll investigate here. We'll just come all back together and all study the EVPs and whatnot. Certain people, be it they're just better gifted at working in houses. Some people prefer going out into the woods. We had some people who loved doing this, but had leg issues. We had one guy in a wheelchair. Heck of a researcher. Great ear. But he is not the guy that you want to try to go pushing up and down hills for his own safety. So he was very good at home in a home situation. And this is before inclusivity. This was just because this guy was cool. But you do run the risk of taking on too much. And I found the more I did like constant investigations, like I would fall asleep. I would fall asleep while listening to some EVPs, listening to ones that I've heard, just trying to recheck them. Dude, I'd have the most gnarly dreams. And I would wake up, like jump up, like, fist up, looking around. And my wife at the time was like, what's wrong? It's like, I don't know. It's like, oh, you got your earbuds on. Why are you listening to the EVPs in your sleep? I said, I wasn't in my sleep when I started listening to them. I fell asleep. It was like literally like white noise. But whatever was going on in the background, it wasn't good. And I think it kept my mind open in my sleep. And again, you got to be focused. You got to be in the right frame of mind, coherent, and all that. But I don't know. Like, have you talked about the demonic or seemingly whatever? What's the kind of weirdest stuff? Have you ever had anything? You've been scratched, you've been hit, whatever, called bad words, anything like that?
Oh yeah, bad words a lot. We have quite a few with the spirit box, and the video always shows me, and I always laugh, and I don't know why, but I always find it funny when they call me a bad. It's unexpected to hear it. Like you're just in this dark room, and then you hear like motherfucker, and you're like, what, And
Yeah, far out because I got stuff to tell you, man. I was somewhere, and we got an EVP, and I've heard someone say go to hell, and then I had someone, and I was talking to my friend. He was a bigger guy than me. Like I said, I'm about, at the time I was probably 275, close to 3, but he was like a little bit bigger than that. And then I heard something that's like, and it sounded like it said, "Fat bastard," and it wasn't like fat bastard. It wasn't like from the movie. It was like, "Oh, you fat bastard." And I was like, man, I can't believe they said that to you. He's like, man, why's it got to be me? You're fat too. So, hey, man, you're the one holding the voice recorder, and said, you're right beside me. So we had this back and forth. Who was a fatter bastard? But that's trippy. And we had some stuff like that back in the old days, we had the Spanish flu that come down the Missouri, or not the Mississippi River that runs through Kentucky down and past Missouri. And anyway, there was a town called Paducah, which is not too far from me, that has some really interesting ghost stories too. But which I guess I will plug. I wrote in the Curious Counties of Kentucky. It covers all the different counties in Kentucky. But anyway, and it killed a bunch of kids. Not my book. God, totally not.
That would have been bad.
I want to get that started. But no, the Spanish flu, they call it the Spanish lady, killed a bunch of people. And there were these graveyards. And I was like, little stones. Like, okay, well, maybe they're poor. They couldn't afford it. And there were these different little graveyards. And I was like, 1912 to 1918, 1916 to 1918, nothing past 1918. And I'm like, what the hell happened? And researching, I found out it had been killed a bunch of kids. And we would get the sounds, which I'm a parent, and I think that laughter of a child's wonderful unless it's 2 a.m. and you don't have kids, right? So we were out there and I could definitely feel energy. And my missus at the time, she had a very maternal nature, and kids just love her. And by extension, spirits of dead kids, I guess, loved her, or whatever it was. And she would we actually had images where it looked like something was like, am I hung on a bush or something? No, there's no bushes. Why? What are you feeling? And it's just, look at my pants leg, and you can kind of see it I can show you just slightly, just like it just enough. And I said, "Are you not moving your leg right?" I put my hand on her leg to say, like, maybe your leg's quivering, you don't realize it. It was still doing it. I said, that is super freaky. And we got an EVP of a kid that says, "Can I go home?" And it broke my heart. It broke my heart, man. But probably the most on the nose dark I ever dealt with. I was at a house which later burnt down. So I think there was some not good, some no good mojo, no bueno. And we were in the back room. Now they had animals. They had like 2 dogs. They wanted to be on the property. I said, please stay outside with your dogs. So there's no crossover with voices and scratching and noise. And we're thinking, it's a spook. And it's the dogs digging at his plate. They were all outside. They had the dog on a leash, both of them. We're walking through. Okay, we go to the back room. Back room feels weird. It's actually where the brother-in-law lived. He actually ended up having a heart attack in the kitchen. Long story short. So we're going through it. Don't think it was him. And I'm going, if there's anybody that would like to comment, if there's something you'd like us to say, if there's something you want to share, something you want people to know, you can speak into the stuff. You know the spiel. And I would hear something go. It's like, okay, and I kept talking, comparing something slight. I thought maybe the guys were rubbing their backs on the wall. I didn't know what the heck they were doing in the doorway. And then something went, whoo, bam, like about 1.5 feet from my face. It hit the wall. Like, whoa. Step back. So what the frick? And it was a box fan. It hadn't been plugged in. It was nothing. And it was about 6 foot this way. Picked up, tram, past my head about 1.5 feet. I went, okay, everybody, I think it's time to back out. All right. Well, thank you for your time. And so that was really weird. And as we were starting to step back, I said, I felt movement past my legs. And I went, oh, man, who let the dog in here? Ha, ha, ha. We're all laughing. Tension break. So we finished up. So, okay, man, we totally leave those dogs out. Anyway, went out here, said, hey, got a few things. I said, hey, with all due respect, I really wish you'd kept your dogs in your leash. What are you talking about? I said, there was a dog, or just, no. Our dogs haven't left our tether. We had other team members out there. So, no, these dogs hadn't moved because they were just watching for anything outside. I said, okay, I got some interesting things to show you. And they said they had a lot of energy in the room. The kids would sleep in the room. They didn't like it. They felt very uncomfortable, always felt watched. And I said, yeah. And I told them about the fan. And it wasn't too long. They moved. And then about 6 months later, the house burned down. That was freaky. I've used the senior moment, the vining rods. And at the time, it was the same day. And this was before that happened. And my missus at the time was like, well, look, whatever you are, you don't have permission to scare these kids. And she was very doing that mom thing, you're not much of anything if you're trying to do that and harm children, right? They had said that she was saying, okay, I'm sorry, and whatever, but you can't do this and whatever. And I was holding the rods, and the rods crossed. And when the rod to the left crossed, it actually caught her across her throat. And it put like about a 3-inch scratch. Mm-hmm. So what ended up happening, I'm gonna say where I get away from this so it's not so loud. But what happened was then shortly after that, we go into that room, and here I get a fan thrown at my head. So thanks, hon. But But I understand what she was trying to do, but man, it absolutely was not cool. Um, had been in one area, it was a low-lying area of another graveyard, really Civil War area, and walked around just fine. And I got down in an area, and I saw another friend of mine. He was kind of walking around, hand on his hip a little bit, kind of looking at the ground, shaking his head a little bit. And I'll go in there and check on him. No sooner than I got about 5 foot from him, I started getting kind of like almost like an asthma attack, like you kind of felt it in your chest. And it wasn't like you see this on TV, people go, "Oh man, I don't feel good. I don't feel good. Oh, I feel sick." It wasn't like I was going to puke, but it was just like, I don't feel good down here. I was like, "Man, what's going on with you right now?" I didn't tell him what I was doing because I didn't want to influence him. He says, "I just feel a little confused." Anything else? He said, "Yeah, it's kind of like a pressure. It's like I'm deep into the pool." I said, "Me too, man. Let's go up here." Walked another 5 or 10 foot. It's like something took a band off my chest. And this is the place where it told me to. It was very southern because it says, "Hey, you go to hell," like that. Like okay, all right, Bubba. Trust me, I'm about. So we got up out of it. It still gives me goosebumps, man. That was freaky. I checked them out because most of my guys were corrections or law enforcement related. We always kept first aid kit, blood pressure cuffs, all that, extra water, blankets in case somebody had has a issue with shock. But so we both sat there and drank some Gatorade. We both ate before we come, so I know our sugar wasn't low or nothing. But that was trippy. That was probably the most physical I've ever had. I mean, I felt like little brushes on my shoulder, or like it's like a cobweb, but there's no cobweb. It's just kind of glitchy, weird stuff. But that was pretty trippy. And we also had, we were listening to EVPs on the way back. I just remembered this. And we were like, "Hey, would anybody like to talk to us?" So we had the volume up because it was kind of like, "Hey, does anybody want to talk to us?" But it wasn't so loud. And we're driving, and you hear like crickets, and then you hear boom. It was actually boom. And we're like, half off the road. Jesus, what was that? And I said, "Were any of you guys here during the war?" Okay. They didn't call it the Civil War back then. They called it the war. It wasn't any of this. I mean, down here they call it the War of Northern Aggression, but that's another meeting. But the point is, it was scary as heck. And I contacted a guy who was a Civil War reenactor. And I said, his name was Mr. Ward, real good guy. I said, "Mr. Ward, I want you to listen to something. Just humor me." Played it. It's like, "Where do you say you got this?" Down here in LBL, line between the lakes. And he said, that sounds just like an old school cannon because it's you hear the igniter and then the boom." And I showed him, and it did it 2 or 3 more times. And I said, "Were you here during the war?" And right after I said the war, boom, it did it again. In the distance, you sound like you heard someone moving a wagon down a cobblestone street. Come to find out, there had been a cobblestone street there. It's not there anymore. So all that happened at the same time. And that was probably the most freaky in the moment situation. And the fact that he actually verified it, because he said, he showed me a recording from Gettysburg. He sounded for a big reenactment. It sounded exactly the same, man. Exactly the same. And I'm like, what? I don't know how to wrap my head around it. And that's when I realized, look, some things aren't quantifiable. Paranormal is one of those things, at least for now. And that's left me with a real, how do you say it? A wonder, a reverence, a humility, and just knowing there's so much more out there to explore. That's what keeps me excited to keep doing this.
Well, you had mentioned the pulling of the leg, and I wanted to show you something. So let's see if I can make this work. Okay. Let's see. So we're gonna click on this one. Yeah, so watch like right there.
Yeah. And there's nobody behind that couch or nothing, right? There's nothing,
No, that's just the wall right there.
and it's flush with the. Yeah, that's weird. So it's not like something could have a cat or something could have. You always troubleshoot stuff. Yeah, that's friggin' weird, man.
Right. Well, and then we have this one because so while we're pulling that up, we had gotten asked to help build a paranormal group at Adams State University in Alamosa here, and so we were helping them. Let me see if I can do this. Just teach the students how to investigate and what tools to use, and I was like, kind of just go bare bones, like you kind of don't need everything. Uh, but yeah, one of the days you were talking about herding cats, like 60 people showed up,
Oh no.
and
Well, tell me you did it in groups of 10.
oh no, they just came in because we were only supposed to be on the third floor, and then next thing you know, we had full reign of the entire college building.
Which, you know, in one way is beautiful, but then like you said, how do you not get cross contamination between floors?
Oh yeah,
You know, especially with like, I'm assuming there's stairways going up to all of it.
yeah. Yeah, so this was also in here. This is actually looking at the balcony, so of their auditorium. Right here is the edge of their balcony. And then it's like a
Okay.
20-foot drop to, the stage and everything. And this is like super slow down.
Ooh. No, okay, I'll slow down for a second. What you got right now, the three quarters and turn view of a face, was that one of your dudes?
Yeah.
That wasn't one of your guys. That's right there is not your. Oh, it's elongated and that's almost reptilian.
Yeah, it's really weird. And then so this is all within 4 frames. We had to slow it down like super slow to catch it.
Oh, that's gnarly.
And there was like 2 orbs that followed it. So there's like a white light, but then there's also like a white orb, and then there's a dark orb that follows it
Yeah,
afterwards.
like
Like
right here.
there's the white one, or there's the white one,
Yeah, yeah. Did you?
which looks almost like another face.
Okay. Did
But
you
then
guys?
there's like another one.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to walk you. Did you happen to get any
No worries.
temperature fluctuations or EMF pulses or anything with that going on?
Well,
We
none
didn't.
of us were in the auditorium.
Mm-mm.
Like everybody else was elsewhere.
Oh man, that's compelling. Jeez, man.
Yes.
Golly.
And we have the raw DVR footage, so you can see none of us are in there.
Yeah. See, I'm telling you, when I keep saying my books, but I had to give a reference to what it is. I had a book as part of the haunting series. I've got stuff past the haunting series, but I got 12 books out. It was 4 or 5 books. Hauntings of the St. Vincent's Academy in Morganfield, Kentucky. And it had been last life it had, because, different houses, places have different, lives. The last had been a home for special needs adults. And I had a friend of ours that had worked there and always said it was wonky. Doing research, I found that it was founded by a group of nuns to teach the local people, and also set up a community there. Out in that part, or actually in this part, they would send religious folks. They're looking for conversions, and it's like, cool, they can deal with the natives, and if they don't get murdered, hey, well, maybe we'll set a town up. So sounds cold, but that's how it was. Anyway, we had been there, and we had left a recorder, and we had some cameras and whatnot. We didn't catch any video or visual, but we had a ball. I brought a ball in, thinking, well, they're childlike, so maybe they'll play with the ball. And so we were outside. Some of the guys smoked. I said, we are not smoking in this building, man. It's going to mess up pictures and whatnot. So we went outside, walked about 50 feet from the building. Everybody's talking like this, very quiet. They burnt their stuff and come back in. I saw that it showed it picked something up. So I played it. This is a long hallway. The ball is in the middle of the hall. It's like a nursery rhyme. And first you heard, at first it's real faint. It just stops. You almost hear like kind of a, like studying it. Like, that's interesting. Then you hear it fading off down the other end of the hall. It come from what the boy side was and ended up with the girl's side. So it was probably a little girl that had been playing down the hallway, turned around, and went back to her side, which makes sense. It was a little girl, I would assume, because it almost sounded like those little patent leather, not quite like tap shoes, but like those sort of old school wooden heeled shoes. Click, 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 click. Like 1950s, something like that. And I had talked to the girl. Well, I'll just say she was on part of the nursing staff. And I said, what's happening in this hallway? And we'd actually had some of the magnetic doors come off, just decided to not be magnetic anymore and close on us. And she said, yeah, people would encounter energy, hear little noises, footsteps. I said, okay. And I showed her that. She's like, oh my God. She said, I've heard that more times than I want to know. I want to admit to it. And I took some pictures in the hallway, and it was after the doors closed. And I said, something's messing with us. I don't think it's bad, but something's messing with us. And I took a couple like readings and said, EMF's weird here. I said, take some shots in that hallway, because it wasn't pitch black, but like, you ever been in areas it's like, okay, it's a little dark. That's darker than dark. Around the edges of the hallway, it was dark. I said, take pictures. Like, take 5 or 6. Well, there was you know what a med cart is, or a feeding cart? And it usually has an opening in the bottom for you to put trays under. Well, anyway, took a picture. I said, there's something here. I don't know what it is. Took it home, cleaned it up, tightened it up, zoomed in, got the pixelization out of it. And do you know that scene from Amityville Horror where the kid's coming out of the room and he's kind of like looking around the corner like this?
Mm-hmm.
And you see those real bright eyes. There was 2 eyes. They weren't like, I'm sure you guys know, like, deer eye color is different than a human's, or a cat eye color. This was like the white reflective human eyes. And you could even kind of see the out shape of a kind of a squarish looking face. And so I showed it to her a few weeks later. I said, remember I told you there was something weird? I said, okay. So I want you to see this. And I may have changed the name in the book. And she said, oh my God, Ryan. Is that the name of the hall? Ryan Hall? No. When did you take that? I said, after the doors were closing. He said, I never even thought about it. So what is it? And it says, we had a boy named Ryan. And you know how like a little kid would like put their hands over their eyes? You can't see me. He was very simple. And he said he would play with the doors, like to jump out, scare you or tug your pants. And of course, everybody knows he's there. And they're going, oh my God, Ryan, you scared me to death. And he just laugh, and it was good times. He would like to get under the food cart when they're getting ready to come around. It's actually kind of a lighthearted story, just in a dark setting. And he would wait till the ladies to come get the plates. And they're like, well, this thing sure is heavy. And they push him a couple doors down, and then he'd poke his little head out, boo, just like that, boo. And I said, well, that's weird. Why are we picking up energy from a guy who just didn't happen to live here? So no, you don't understand. We're in the South. We call everybody Hun. Said, Hun, you don't understand. He died on that hall. He passed away. And I went, oh, okay. She said, hopefully it's just some remnant of his energy. It's not stuck in that hall. But there was a lot of stuff like that there. There was a boy that got killed, accidentally got killed in a thresher, farming implement. He'd been sick, and he was missing his mom, and he was always saying that his mom was calling him, and he had a high temp, and he got caught in a thresher, and then his dad found him in the thresher. And the story was he believed that his son saw his mom, that she was calling him home to him, and that's what happened. So dark stuff. But that's sometimes what you deal with. It's not, like you said, it's not for everybody, and I don't say it with any kind of bravado. You got to be able to process it. It's kind of like being. Did you know what a sin eater is?
Oh, what?
A sin eater. It's sort of like African culture. I've done a lot of research on the paranormal around the world, and I've been very lucky to learn a lot of stuff. But say you had someone who maybe led somewhat of a loose life, or maybe they didn't settle up with their God, they would invite these people in. And it's sort of one of those things, like why we eat, why we have after meals, after funerals, stems from what they call sin eaters. And they'll have the food around. Sometimes they'll have a plate on their chest or something, if it's a guy, I assume not a female. And they would prepare this food, and this man would come in, it's like last communion, more or less. And they would eat a little bit of the food. And supposedly they would take that sin with them, so they could be buried clean and go to heaven or wherever they're going. But it's like that. You go in here and you deal with some of the darker elements of it, and it's up to you to process it and hopefully find something positive in it. Hopefully give some sort of, I don't want to say deliverance to the people, but give them something good at the end of it, that they can kind of keep going and doing your thing. It's kind of like the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. The guy left a sadder but wiser man. It's part of it. It's just part of it. And I don't know. I mean, I used to carry a lot of it with me, and I've had to learn to let it go. And there's still things like that bother me. I won't lie. Quiet times at night. Nights are the worst. But that's when I write a lot. That's when I'll work on my podcast. If I'm not, because I work with special needs adults now. That's my day. It's not my day job, but I do like 16-hour shifts, and I take care of these guys. So once I get these guys in bed, I have time. I'll work on a story or research on my phone. And that's kind of how I kind of absorb it. And it also reminds me, all this is temporary. All this is fleeting. I'm not trying to be like Mr. Downer, but I'm just saying life is precious. Life is magical because it's got a shelf life. It's like watching your kids grow up, man. It will be over quicker than you know. And so yeah. If I got any wisdom from it, is to appreciate the time that we got.
Yeah, very well said. Yeah, no, it's there's a lot of stories that will definitely bum people out once they get into it. We actually did like a month-long investigation in Monument. And the people, the owner, she was so nice. We'd be there every Friday and, investigating. But they had experienced what they called was the cornflake man. And it looked like kind of like burns, but like in the shape of like cornflakes or whatever. And so they were really, quite scared of this thing. But at the same time,
I thought I'm sorry, I was thinking it would be like the Quaker Oats guy or like Tony the Tiger or something. That'd be kind of cool. But no, he's like all burnt up and flaky.
And yeah, he would hide like in the shadows. And then at the same time, she had lost her daughter, and I think she was in her 20s. I won't say it on here what happened. But we were in her room at the house, and the owner Beth was with us, and we have it on the channel. I'll have to send it to you so you can listen to it, but it was on the spirit box. And Andrew was with Beth, and he was like, what's your name? And you hear Amanda. Remember? Amanda. And that was her name. And that is like one of the coolest ones I think I have, because it's just like, it was also very sad at the same time, because that was the same house we're getting a lot of these negative things. Because there was obviously something more than just Amanda hanging out there. At one point, Matt me and Andrew went to get some pizza. We come back and Matt was like, "You got to listen to this," and I listened to it, and it's like, "Go kill yourselves," is what it says. And I was like, "Oh, that's dark." Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I actually had a psychology student that was one of our people. I always like to have a skeptic. I'm fine with having people that believe in ghosts. I'm fine in having, but I want someone who's like not even that tore up about being a ghost or not ghost, but they're there for the psychological element and who are somewhat detached from the whole life. But it's hard, and I was like, what can you tell some of these people? Because not everybody can absorb it and just walk on with it and stuff. And anytime if somebody felt kind of wonky, I'd have them talk to them and I'd go, hey, why don't this week you just take a break, center yourself, go fishing, go watch a comedy, whatever, go out and have a nice steak dinner, something, just anything but spooks. Just don't worry about it. They'll be there. Okay. That's the thing. I mean, unfortunately, they're going to be there unless there's some sort of epiphany that is received and they move up or whatever, the residual just stays. And had a team member that committed suicide, and he worked for me at the pen, and about 6 months after that, I was done. I couldn't do it anymore. It was too hard on my heart, and he was kind of like a little brother to me. And I'm not saying that spirits killed my. I'm not saying all that, but I'm just saying he was having some really fallout relationships with his wife. She's getting ready to leave him and all this mess, take her kids, and it just was too much. It was too much for him. So that's the thing. Sometimes people go to stuff because they're lacking something inside of them, and it's not a judgment. I'm just saying you really gotta watch your team. You really gotta watch it. And I felt like I felt the guy. I did all I could. I tried to talk to him as much as I could, but there was a couple days he just wouldn't answer his phone, and I was raising my own kids. But that's I don't even know why I told you that, but it's just that's what some of the stuff I think about. You do your best, and that's all you can do. But I think that's another reason I really, really whittled the team down. There's too many lives to try to juggle with your own and research and stuff, and it's just that's why I said, hey, you want to do your own little team? I'll support you. I'll back you up. I'll even help you with research. It's just I don't want to carry that rock anymore. I just want to do like I did when I started, pure research, some investigations, and by then I was already starting to get into my writing, and which is weird because I got like 12 books out now by this point, and a couple more. Getting ready to have one talking about near-death experiences and reincarnation and similarities and or connections with them, because sometimes it happens in both. Sometimes you have a near-death experience and then you pick up elements from a past life, or it explains why you have a fear of, I don't know, guacamole. I don't know. There's a horrible guacamole accident in the Mexico streets. But
crushed
sorry,
by the guacamole truck.
man, I'm telling you, yes, death by delicious creamy flavor. But yeah, I had to change it up, man. I got too dark. But and I'm working on Viking and Celtic lore, touching on like origins of like zombies and vampires and all kinds of, as we would call them, Haines boogers and spooks in this part of the country. And everywhere's different. Did you ever hear of a Kraus? Okay. It sounds German, but it's not. Maybe I'm just doing it like that because my grandparents were German. Kraus. It sounds very German, but it is an Asian vampire. And I say gnarly, but these guys are gnarly. Okay. Did you ever watch 30 Days a Night?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Horribly underrated film. I think it was probably one of the best representations of what an original vampire is. A shark that walks on the earth and just devours you. That's what a vampire is. in its origin. Well, a lot of times this was a female, very beautiful. They would go, they'd lay down, and everything's kind of like doing the motions. Nobody's seeing what I'm doing, but they lay down, and then their neck start going like this, and their neck's go clunk, comes off their body. All their organs come out with them, and they float through with these big long tongues with these barbs on them, and they attack men mostly. And a lot of times they'll go somewhere and they'll appear to be like ladies of the night, which is a good cautionary tale. Guys, keep it at home. You don't want that. There's worse things than 18 years of child support, trust me. But so here he is, and this woman attacks him, drains his blood, all that stuff. And they go back to the body. And their organs are full of all this blood and goo and all this mess. And so a lot of times, if they find them before they're back, because what is they absorb the blood and it feeds the skull and whatever the brain, and then they go back, and then you can't tell the seam anymore. But if you catch them before they go back in, then you can almost like a squid, and you pull all the stuff out and all that, and you spike it and you burn it and put like a silver nail through it or whatever, and then it kills the crouse, and then you can burn the head. Some people go ahead and cut the feet. If they put the head back on, if they don't cut it, they put it on backwards and take the eyes out and burn them and all this. I should probably say this is a good time to let you guys know I am available for children's parties. So I'm your guy. But that's some of the cool stuff I learned when I was in Thailand and was lucky enough to do some stuff in Japan. They were really funny. It's different. Ancestor worship is different. And I think we all do it on some level. You know, we prize images of our grandma and pop and all those guys. And you pay respect. You know, Day of the Dead is for remembrance, because if you don't remember these people, they fade away. You know, what was it? Coco, I think the name was that little movie.
Yeah, Coco.
What a sweet movie. It was so cute. Made me cry. I ain't gonna lie. But we're so much more similar than we give ourselves credit for. There are cultural divides. We all love our kids. And, you know, as long as you're not harming anybody or whatever, I don't have a problem with it. But that was the cool thing. I talked to people that were like street vendors and stuff. And because we were there for part of it, we were there for an adoption, but I was also doing research. And so I started talking to these guys, which first automatically freaks them out. Here comes this, because most of these guys are about chest high to me. So here comes this frickin' Frankenstein looking Bull Shannon from Night Court looking guy come walking down the hall. Hey, how you doing? And I spoke in very broken Thai. And I actually met one guy. He was getting ready to get done with his day. And he still had a fair amount of food. And I said, what are you going to do with your food? And I don't know. I was trying to sell it. And you bargain. Everything's a bargain. And he said, oh, I can sell you this and that for 100 baht. And I said, what do you want for this? 200 baht. I'll give you 500 baht if you put a couple of drinks on it. That way we can eat for a day or two. Yeah. Says, how often are you through here? And I've got it figured out like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He does different parts of town. Said, bring me what you got. Every week, I'll buy it the whole time we're here. I was there for 3 months buying that food, man. And I love shrimp, but I got so sick of shrimp. But what happened was I said, tell me about your family. Tell me about your day. Tell me. And it's the same thing. But my wife, man, she's nagging. She wants me to get another card. She would, you know, this is that kind of joke, you know, I belong to the streets, man. I've got to be out here. That's what I do. This is my beat. So I get it. And it says, so she loves you, right? I said, yeah, but she's mad I'm not home. I said, but she's also mad if you don't get the new dress, right? And he said, exactly. So, and it could be the same thing if it was a female to a guy. So I don't want to sound misogynistic, but it's the same headaches and the same joys that we all got. And they opened up to me, and I was like, tell me about your ghost. There's everything. Banana ghost. Before you cut bananas off the tree, you think the banana ghost, because a lot of times they'll be like tarantulas, and they're like the song. Deadly black tarantula, dun, 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 like the song. That's for real. spiders like living in banana plants. Sometimes you'll actually see a little bit of webbing on your bananas if you get them.
We used to get them because me and Sam worked at King Supers, and we
Yeah.
get those wandering spiders coming out of the bananas.
Oh my God! Did you
Yeah.
save put them in like a little container and save them, or just smash them?
Usually they'd run really fast, and then you didn't know where they went after that. They go down in some crevice.
That's usually what happens.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that that would have been a good side hustle from where it was from. I don't know where your bananas come from, but I learned that if you drop your fork or your chopsticks, don't pick them up. Any food on it, that's for the hungry ghost. If you deny the hungry ghost, it's going to follow you home. Never put if you get done eating food with your chopsticks, don't put it in the top of it, because they stick up and those look like incense that you use for someone who's died, and that means there's a chance of someone dying. So much different superstition, but we're no better. Okay, but Rich, let me see. Superstitions, rituals, and deathly lore. Another plug. Sorry, but it touches on. We go foot first. Do you know why we go foot first out of a funeral home, like in a call? Okay, and this is different in England. It's the opposite. They have you going out and away from the congregation, because they used to believe, and that's why they close the coffins as well. Is that's a last chance for the spirit to beckon you. I've lost people really dear to me, and even if it's not vocalized, there's a party that's like, my God, I would go with them if I could. Because part of you goes in that box. There's more than a body. There's part of your history, part of your love, part of your future. Maybe if it's a child, I've been there. And you're like, man, I just wish I could go with them. And it's to keep from being beckoned by the dead to join them in the clay. So we have all that too. To this day, if I'm talking about, hey, how's things going? Well, not too bad. Have you heard about your promotion? No, not yet, but knock on wood. I do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I always, when I go into the woods, I sound like a kook, but I'll be like, not here to bother anything. Thank you guys for letting me walk amongst your trees. Whatever's there, sprites, whatever. We all carry stuff like that with us. And in a way, we're all kind of haunted too. Oh, nice segue. So it takes it all back to, it's all circular, man. It's all circular.
You were talking about the vendor and how he was for the streets, and it made me think of the song Brandy and how the lady is the sea. I don't know why, but you were talking about different traditions and lore and stuff like that. Our buddy John just wrote about the witches of the Southwest because he lives in Roswell. And then also our other buddy who's part of our group, Arlen, is Navajo, grew up on the reservation, and his dad was a tribal police officer in charge of like skinwalkers.
I was going to ask real quick, does he know about the Dark Winds series? It's about Native American.
I don't know if he does, but I do, and I've watched it and I like it.
I dug it. Yeah. She's my dog. I mean, I like the main guy, but she walks that middle line of going, and the more he goes, the more he's falling into the tradition. Going, it just is. You can explain it. What's the old expression? Sometimes it just be like.
Sometimes it just is.
Sometimes it just is, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. Like I told you off camera, I am not going to come at you, with like, like the jackets. It's got the little shoulder pads on it. I'm not trying to be a professor. I'm not trying to be this and that. I'm probably closer to the guy from Joe Dirt. Home is where you make it. Home is where you make it. That's more me. There's some wisdom there, but it's going to come off real back assward, and you're going to think it said something else. So, yeah, that's how I like to bring it. I'm not too cool for school, man. I always want to be approachable, and like if you got your little kid running around and they say, "Hey, there's a call for you on my play phone," I'm going to take that call, man. That's what it's about. Keep simple, keep pure. Try to keep your energy right. Yeah, and I think it goes a long way in getting proper responses from different locations. And I mean, you got to understand, this type of research goes into a lot more than spirits and cryptids and whatnot. Man, I didn't even tell you about our kind of local cryptid legend. I can tell you about it if you're interested in it.
Sure.
Yeah, I love it because one I know in Kentucky because I went to the bridge is the Goat Man.
Goat Man.
Yeah.
Okay, well, not a goat man. It ties in more with a pig. This is a little dark. So anybody with sensitive ears, maybe little kids, maybe you don't want to have them by the radio for a moment. I'll give you a second. But it ties in with an area called Baileyville in Princeton, Kentucky. And it was owned by a guy named Philip Bailey. No, easy lover. I'm kidding. But his name was Bailey. Claude Bailey, I think his name was. And he lived in a time where people, now this is suspected. Now I've had it backed up by family of what the mother, and I'll just leave it at that. This is back in the time when people, like say you live on a property and say you've got behind your rent, or maybe the crops didn't come in good. It was almost like indentured servitude. If you had a son, oh, well, hey, I'll need your son this summer to help me work on my farm over here since you didn't bring in enough to cover your taxes and whatever. Or if your daughter, I'll need her to work in the main house. This is after antebellum, slavery days. And so it was like, well, here, tit for tat, trade this for this, and everything's cool. The story goes is this girl was probably naive, maybe a little simple, and the guy had her pressing more than sheets. You know what I mean? Sheets were involved, but anyway, you know what I'm saying? Poor thing got pregnant. And that man did everything he could to try to get her to an abortionist. And she said, I wasn't raised that way. I'm not going to kill this kid. Whatever your beliefs is, I'm just telling you, this is what it was. He did everything he could. I'll do this. I'll pay you this, whatever. I'm not killing this baby. And he said all this stuff. Oh, it wasn't me. It's DDD, whatever. And she said, look, I'm 16. I never knew a man. Well, long story short, the day before she was going into labor. Labor killed women back then, really quite often. And the story was he came to visit her and says, well, I see you're not going to take my offer. And he said, I just can't do it. He says, I'll make you this promise. Because she started getting upset. He's trying to calm her down. He didn't want to cause a scene. I'll make you this promise. I want to see that baby. If that baby looks like me, I said, I will care for it, through all the days of its life. And she said, okay, thank you. Well, she went and had the baby, whatever. It was very involved. And she was just worn out. And so I think the nurse had come in there to see if it would lay with her and try to breastfeed. Well, he come in. He owned all the area. He just decided to come in, picked up the baby, looked at it. Dude looked just like him. Mini-me, right? Well, it was said that he said, well, damn. It was a shotgun shack. He walked down the 3 steps. He had a little swaddling cloth. It's not getting any better here from this point, guys. So just be aware. Supposedly he took the swaddling cloth, took it off him, let it fly. It was a little boy, which means he would have been, he could demand some of his property. He would demand a cut from his own kids. He wasn't having it. He walked about 75 yards down to the left from the place. It was right next to my grandparents' house. This is how I know this story. And there's no other way of saying it. He picked a little fella up by his feet and did a swing, popped his head on a post, threw his body into these big hogs. Chewed him up. People started hearing the hogs freaking out, ran in, saw the baby missing. Mom was waking, where's my baby? Where's my baby? Screaming. Someone said, oh God, the hog lot. The hogs are going crazy. 1 and 2 and 3, and there it is. They found the swaddling cloth a few feet from that. Of course, the baby was gone. my older brother, Robert, who had told me this story years later, mom and dad never shared it with me, said he was about 10 and you could hear he said he'd never heard a woman scream like that. And God, my baby, my God, what happened to my baby? Lord Jesus, where's my baby? No, God, no, please no. Get it, get it, get it. They're going, don't you understand? It's gone. It's gone. This was backed up by family members that I knew pretty well. And I broached this. I have to ask you about this. And I said, I've heard this. And he said, that was my cousin. Every word of it's true. Then, and what happened is my mom come out because my older brother is running around. What's going on? What's going on? She said, get in the house. His name's Robert. He called him Bobby. Get in the house, Bobby. But Mama, and she said, and I'm going to say the exact code word. She said, GD, boy. I said, get in his house. She was scared to death. She didn't know people just snatching kids and killing them. It freaked her out. Well, years later, started hearing stories about hearing the sounds of hogs. Now, the story was this. The hogs, within a year, were gone. They sold those hogs. People ate those hogs. But I heard another story where the biggest ones, that they were killed. Now, someone said, well, something killed them or somebody shot them or something. Here's a story of the Highland Holler Hogman. Supposedly there was a brother to that girl. He lost his mind. Supposedly he lost his mind and he killed the hog, skinned it, took the head, the head mount and this and that, and went crazy, took off in the woods. I can't confirm or deny it, but that's a story. And as I say, sometimes you'll still hear grunts and hollerings and rooting around down in the hollow, where it was near Highland Baptist Church in Princeton. There's a big hollow that goes all the way from there past Cedar Hill Cemetery, which was just up the street or just up the hillside. And supposedly whatever it was lived down in that area, or it would come back and forth through that area. I've been down there. I've taken photos and things like that. I've not got anything on EVP. I've not got anything on video, but it feels off. You can just tell it's off. And what's so crazy, my mama or my grandma had a well down there. And it was always ice cold, man. It was like a deep well. It was the best water I've ever tasted. It was like, they talk about spring water, but it was sweet. It had a hint of sweet to it. And it was just really interesting. Maybe there's flowers or I don't know what's going on. And then I was about 12 and then the keys started turning. Water goes downhill, doesn't it? Water runs downhill, doesn't it? The graveyard is uphill. And I asked my dad, I said, Dad, I got to ask you something. I said, yeah, boy, what is it? Water's always real good and cold here. Yeah, it's good water. It's really sweet, too. Yeah, sweetest water I ever tasted. I said, Daddy, that water comes off those coffins. That water runs off right down there in that stream. He said, son, oh, man, he should have been a politician. He said, son, what you're tasting is the purity of all those good souls up there. Said, Jesus Christ, Dad. I'm pretty sure I probably drank it a time or two again, but I had to be pretty damn thirsty. So maybe I'm on it. Who knows? But that's the kind of stories you're going to get from me, guys. That's my life. It's full of weird, strange stuff like that, and it always has sort of kind of a gothic turn to it. It's Southern Gothic life. I don't know what else to say about it.
No, I love it. It's great. It's fascinating too, because having spent time in Kentucky, I've heard similar stories, and there's just a thing about it. Like, it's beautiful with all the trees and stuff, and the mist comes in, like where my dad lived.
That mist always.
Yeah. He his backyard was nice. It opened up. Then there was trees on one side, trees on another, and then they'd go down. There's an eagle nest at the bottom, and then in the distance on the hill, there's like a little white church. So it just looked pristine.
Yeah.
And one day, him and they were out of town. I think like in Vegas or something. So my grandpa was watching the house, and he didn't really believe in a lot of this stuff. He had things, but he always kind of wrote it off. And he had called my dad, and he was like, "There's something making this really weird noise." And my dad was like, "Oh, maybe it's like a fox or something, because foxes and stuff make weird noises." And my grandpa was like, "No, it's not a fox. I don't know what it is. It's weird." And I think my dad said he had seen like maybe a Bigfoot or something in that area.
Yeah. Oh my God. There's all kinds of stuff. Madisonville, Kentucky, which is not far from here, had something they called the varmint, which is very Beverly Hillbillies-ish, but supposedly it was almost like an aardvark or something, weird little scurrying creature. Said it had a thin, long tail. It's not a rat, though. It's not this and that. Which who knows what that is, man. But decent amount of werewolf tales, or not werewolf tales. That's dogmen. That's a whole nother discussion. They have those here too, supposedly. Had a friend, I won't say her name. She sent me a picture of something that chased her down from a hunting blind, and she was with her. She had just moved from Michigan, and if you'd like to have her on, I can see if she'd like to be a guest.
Yeah.
She had moved down, and they were riding on a ATV, going back to check where they put feeders out for the deers. Well, and they kept feeling like something was there. Well, as my granny would say, lo and behold, stuff started coming down from the hillside, and it was like heavy. It wasn't a deer. It wasn't a frickin' whatever. It wasn't a possum. It wasn't a wildcat. It wasn't nothing. Supposedly we have panthers here, but it was heavy, man. It was like a bull, like big, grunting, running. They took off, and it was almost daylight because they went up there to check it at night. So anyway, so they're coming, and he's driving like mad. She's trying to like take pictures behind, trying to figure out what's going on. It's so curvy, he had to like go into a slide because he almost went off the road going so fast, which threw her into him, messed her shoulder up, but they made it home. They made it home in one piece, or well, I guess two pieces. So that's good. And she sent me a photo of this thing. And it was the damnest thing. Because I trust my friends, but of course I'm thinking she's got to be playing with me. Cropped the image. I researched it on Google. There's nothing on it. There's nothing to bring back a response. It's not a mask. It's not a whatever, So I knew she wasn't kidding me, but it was weird. It wasn't like a big long snout. It was like a more muted snout. And the ears kind of come off like this. It wasn't like a bear ears, because we are starting to get bear here, but it was weird. To me, I have to look at the eyes better, but the shape of the eyes were almost, maybe wolf eyes were like that, but it was almost, it made me think more of a feline, but it was a freaking 8 foot, 9 foot tall man standing straight up. Do we have werecats? I don't know. I don't know what. There was something. And I have another friend who does research in the LBO, which is land between the lakes, where a lot of this goes down because it's now a preserve or a reserve. They're preserving stuff or whatever. And he's dealt with what he calls like a bear dog or a dog bear, which is sort of like a hybrid. And I'm like, what was the thing they said in the thing? Here comes my deep cut. Well, what is it? I don't know. Whatever it is weird and pissed off. That's how it was. And I asked her, I said, well, did you find anything the next day? She said, no, I ain't going up there again. No, not without some serious firepower. And I said, maybe going today.
Yeah, no, Kentucky has a lot of interesting things. Because I know there's like the devil deer, and it'll sit on the side of the road and wait for cars to come by. Of course,
I just actually ran into one a few days ago. Not a devil deer. He was a devil to me, though. It was like a year. They call them yearlings. They're not quite full grown, but they're not like little Bambies. It
Hmm.
whatever it was ran just like right into the front of my car, under my car, knocked the radiator out, knocked all this out, the alternator, just did a total screw job on my car. But made it home. And no hearses, no ambulances, so it's a win. But have you heard of the knot deer?
It sounds familiar.
It's kind of, I think it's like it resembles a deer, but its movements are weird. I think some
Okay.
people say like its hooves are backwards and stuff. A lot of cultures have something that's supposedly demonic or malevolent. Their feet, like a lot of like in Arabic beliefs or Islamic beliefs, a lot of times there'll be women who walk at night. It's always women. I don't know if there was women, but then you would see them. But if you look at their feet, they say study their feet, and you'll see that their feet are backwards. Did you ever hear of Spring Hill Jack?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, you knew that happened in Kentucky too, right?
I
Sure
did
did.
not.
Okay, there's several correlations between England and the South. Now, here's something you got to believe, or you ain't got to believe. You got to believe this. You got to hear me. Um, Dialects. I've always studied dialects. I can do some fairly good voice, vocal impressions, but I studied all these different dialects, and I always I had a teacher who was like, "Ain't's not a proper word. Ain't's not a proper word." Of course, I'm set. Say what you say about astral signs, but I'm a Sagittarius with a Scorpio rising. I like to argue. So, especially if I know that it's not right. So, come to find out over years that in Europe, like they'll say ain't in Parliament. And then come to find out all those people that were coming over through the Appalachians and all that, they kept their language was not affected by radio or television very much. So it was sort of insular. So a lot of that hard R's and whatnot comes from, through Tennessee and all that comes by way of England. And, there's regions in England you would think that you're talking to a Southerner because it's again, very insulated area and they keep to their traditions, very clandish. And I mean that with a C and not a K. Very, well, this is how we are here, unchanging, timeless. Um, so I remember that was something that was really interesting, and they had so many oral traditions, man. And Spring Hill Jack is one of them, and um, because that had happened around the same time as the what they call it, the Jack the Ripper stuff.
Yeah.
Now you've heard about. Do you know where Owensville is? Probably not. It's
Mm,
Eastern Kentucky, up around Bullitt County and stuff. Long story short, they had something called, well, they called it the Kentucky Meat Shower, and they had the same thing I think it was a few weeks previous in London, or a few weeks latter in London. So there was this woman. She was out hanging her clothes up and making soap or whatever the kind of stuff you do on the back porch in like 1800s. Um, and noticed like little specks coming down. Now this was summertime, so leaves shouldn't be turning. Who knows? Who knows what it is? Maybe bark off a tree. I don't know. At first, it's almost like little pepper flakes coming down. Well, then while she's doing her stuff, she started noticing some of this stuff making little specks on her fresh sheets, which she did not like. She's like, well, I don't know what's going on. And maybe some berries fell off a tree. Who knows, right? There were no trees right by it. But anyway, we always make excuses. So then it started coming down more. And it started coming down almost like fruit, what do you call them? Like Captain Crunch berries when they're wet, soggy. Tap, tap, tap. Then it started coming down in big quarter size, 1 inch, 2 inch chunks. And before she can get out there, her sheets were just blood red. And at about a 50 by 75-yard area, about 2 inches deep, was meat. And she started hollering to her neighbors and, Miss McGill, Miss whatever. And people started coming out and like, what in tarnation? And look at all this. And people took it on themselves to check it out. Well, here come the men folk. Harump, harump. Let me take a look at this. We're in charge, ladies. Back up. Started picking it up. It's like, well, it feels meatish, Impossible Burger, right? So anyway, picking it up. That's interesting. And smelled like meat. Okay. Looked up, nothing was there. Okay. Come out of nowhere. No clouds, clear day. Well, people said, go to town, tell the sheriff, get the doctor out here. Something's going on. Where'd all this meat come from? Well, while they had so much, they took samples. Okay. They sent it. Now, I don't know if you knew this. Kentucky was originally going to be called Transylvania, which would have been metal. I would have loved that. But we always have that connection to it. As far as I'm concerned, this is Transylvania 2.0. But so anyway, they sent it in the sample after being checked out was sent to Transylvania University, where it says to this day, actually Ozzy and his son went and did a show about it, and they talked about it. Now, I will tell you what they did with the meat, then I'll tell you what they said it was. There was people who said, well, man, this is like manna from heaven. What a blessing. A lot of people are struggling right now. That's cool. Some people took it up. Hey, we're going to cook it up on the grill. Everybody who wants some, manna meat. People called it manna meat because it come out of the sky. Cooked it up, and everybody's like, that's really not bad, man. It's not fatty and da-da-da-da. And it's kind of like wine, it smells like the California vineyard. It's a 79. Precocious little taste. Anyway, and they're eating stuff. Having a good time. Carnival stuff. Well, lo and behold, they fed this to women and children and everybody. Lo and behold, it was inconclusive, but the closest leaning things that they could find at the time, they said, well, maybe a buzzard flew over and regurgitated this. That's how it was delivered. I said, okay. They said, well, it could be horse lung, maybe, which first of all, man, where do they get that much horse lung? And then they said, but most likely, maybe human tissue. They were eating kids. Whole freaking town. So, yeah, children's parties. That's all I'm saying. Available for children's parties. And my thing is, I think they just went, well, that was unfortunate. And they just kept living their lives. The guy who I talked to, who was on the fire department, and I talked to the local librarian, who was very cool and gothy, had like the Wednesday Addams look and stuff. And I was like, dude, man, this is big news. This is a big draw for your area. And so it's like, man, it's really not something we want to broadcast. You know what I mean? And I said, well, but it's just, either they were eating horses, which still isn't the greatest, but we don't want to be known as the baby eaters. Yeah, maybe keep that off. Maybe keep that off the holiday float. Where it's got like people eating something. So yeah, that was a trip, and that's pure Kentucky. That's pure Kentucky, man. There's a lot of things that happen. People don't understand it. They talk about, things happen down in hills and hollers that never leave the hills and hollers. Like I always told you, or someone always told, my dad always says, son, and I didn't understand it until I heard that story. He said, son, you're always going to have enemies, but you're always going to have a hog farm within about 2 miles of wherever you're at. I'm like 6. I'm eating the cereal. I'm like, deep, Dad. My dad had dry sense of humor, and I was like, I get your joke now, Dad. It's funny. It's witty. But that's absolute gospel. And yeah, you can look it up. I actually did a podcast on it. So
yeah, see, if it was Colorado, they would have opened a restaurant themed about it, because we have a Alfred Packer Bar and Grill. And if you want to go there, everything's pork, because he was the Colorado cannibal. And
yeah.
So, yeah, that's what Colorado does. I know there is a story too. I'm pretty sure it's Kentucky.
He loved those long shanks.
What?
He loved the long shanks, yeah. The legs. I was a big fan of the legs and the sweet meats. Albert Fish, he quite enjoyed the buttocks.
Yeah, it's funny. But there's the story of the like people with like blue skin or green skin.
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, you had the green. The people supposedly they thought they were fairies or something. Now you understand how the blue skin happened, right?
I've heard it once, but I've forgotten.
Okay. You've heard of people talking about people that were royal and fancy. They called them blue bloods because they had a slight blue tint to them. Way, way back, people understood, and that's why we have crosses of silver. It prevents infection. And a lot of people would, in wine, in the old flask, they'd find them in like old old caves in the deserts. You would find a silver coin in the bottom of the wine to help prevent infection. Well, if you're living next to a hillside with a mountain, maybe there's a silver vein in it. The water comes through it. Your water you're drinking all the time, it's going to be blue. And if you're going to start picking up silver elements in your body, you take enough of that like colloidal silver, you're going to be blue as Papa Smurf. There was a guy they called Papa Smurf. I think he ended up taking a treatment and it helped leach all that silver out of him, and he turned back to a little, a pink guy. And but yeah, it straight up happens, and that's supposedly why they called them blue bloods, because they ate off silver trays and ate off silver spoons, and wine leaches out silver from goblets. There it is.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Yeah, no, we definitely got to have you come back on, and definitely if you want to come on the comic podcasts. I know our next one's the 24th. We're doing The Crow. I still got to sit through that movie, the new one. But yeah, you're always welcome.
I will tell you, and I'll make it quick, so I don't want to make you go over, but the actor himself, I think, was fine. I begrudgingly dealt with the new It. To me, there's no other It than Tim Curry, but I'm an old school. I'm loyal to, my fandoms, but I was hoping for better, and I've heard it sort of stunk on ice, and I hate that because I think they could have done a lot with it.
Yeah, no, it's been a cursed movie. I mean, even the original had a lot of problems getting made, and then this one's gone through like 20 different actors. So, yeah, we're gonna do a deep dive on the 24th. So if you want to hop in, feel free. I'll send you a link.
Yeah, man, sounds cool.
But before you leave, do you want to tell people about your show and as well as your books and stuff, and where to find more information about you, so
Sure.
we can help you out?
Right on, and thank you again for the opportunity. My podcast is the House of Asher, kind of like the House of Usher, because I'm a big Vinny P fan. But you can find that on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeart, all the podcast things, and I also put it on YouTube. And I'm also working on a series called History from the Dark Side, which touches on nice little stories like that. The Caldwell County Courthouse Vampire. That's an interesting one. And like I said, they can find my books if they just Google my name, Stevie Asher, which is what I publish under. E is for evil. No, actually, it's for Edward. But if you look on Google or go to Amazon, where I put all my books out currently, just punch in my name, man. Hauntings of series. Strange. Whatever storage. All kinds of different anthologies that I put out, dark history stuff. That's mother's milk to me. So yeah, go check them out, and check out Steve Asher, lowercase together, .studio.com.
And we'll make sure to be good hosts and put all the description or all the links in the description below, so you guys can just go down there and click it. But yeah, we'll also do a book review, 2 of your books, because that's what we do on the channel, a little of everything. But yeah, thank you again for joining us. This has been a fantastic conversation. Like you said earlier, it's just like us talking back and forth, so it's not like a one of those you got to sit through and like kind of ask questions back and forth. It's been great.
Well,
Absolutely.
like I said, I mean, I can follow a script. Thank you so much. Just I want to feel like we're sitting there kicking back some sodas or a couple brews and just BS and being guys and bouncing all over the place. There's nothing funner for me.
Yeah, no, this has been enjoyable, and we'll definitely have to do a part 2 and more from there for sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I hope you have a good rest of your night. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
All right. Rock on, guys. Best of you.
So once again, Sam and I want to say thank you to Steve for joining us on this awesome episode of Culz Interviews. Make sure to go to the description below to find all the links to his podcast, books, website, etc. because we think you guys will enjoy it as much as we did. But until next time, for more Culz Interviews, click that link to your left. For more about us here at Culz Paranormal, click that link to your right. And don't forget to hit that like and give us a subscribe. And let us know, have you read Steve's books? And what was your favorite part of this interview? Tell us in the comments below.